Let's go. Let's go, man. Hunt the ball. Let's go, family on 3. 1, 2, 3, family.
Hello, football family. Welcome into Huddle It Up Films, continuing our position review. We have a good one for today, as you can see by the title, talking about our tight ends. We're going to throw Patrick Ricard in with the group because that's mainly how he's used, and had to break out somebody from the friend file here, Ken McKusick. Try to figure this out. Try to talk this through because the Ravens have so many options at this position, and Ken, as you know, really tracks the formation and the usage of these players. So we're going to take our best guess as we sit here, Ken, in June to see how the Ravens will deploy all these options they have at tight ends. So, Ken, thank you so much for coming. And you can see Ken's Twitter there on the screen. But why don't you tell us, Ken, what's going on at Film Study Baltimore?
Oh, in the middle of an expectations series. Appreciate you doing one or two of these, I think. And you did some really oddball players, which was great because no one else would have taken Makai Polk, I know, as a player they wanted to talk about. But that was a good choice. We do 2 players at a time, and they're out there. Great fun format, a lot of great analysts. We just did the 26th of them today, which I believe is the final one. So we're all done at this point.
Okay, so 26 times 2. So you hit you hit the 52 players. It's a workload, Ken. Even doing series for this, and I'm doing like 12 of them, and it's tough. So a lot of respect there. So
labor of love, my friend.
Labor of love. You've been doing it for quite a while, and we all appreciate it, man. So check out Ken's work. The links to Film Study Baltimore and everything will be down the bottom. So let's jump into it. We got a lot to talk about. The tight end group. First guy we'll talk about just very briefly is Mark Andrews. I think fans, everybody in the family out there knows how important he is to this team. The number one option, all pro season. Ken, 107 catches, 1,361 yards. And every time you threw it to Mark Andrews, the average yard per target, 8.9. So, if you're targeting Mark Andrews, the average outcome on that play was almost 9 yards. What a player, a guy that the Ravens really need to stay healthy and come through down the stretch for this team.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, honestly, the Ravens, it would be a good thing for the Ravens if Andrews had a few less targets. I think that would mean they're balancing their offense a little bit. They forced him the football a lot, particularly with Huntley late in the year. Really schemed him open. I believe his yards per target might have been better before the Huntley set of games came along. So certainly it's not a bad year to have 9 yards per target or thereabouts. But Andrews has even done better than that in his career, and he's certainly capable of more. So with Lamar Jackson and their natural connection, I think we'll probably actually see a few less targets and probably a few less snaps on the field for Andrews.
Yes, interesting point. Maximize his usage as much as you can. Don't wear him out early in the season, and just have him go over the middle and have him on those broken plays that he's so good at, and just try to use him less, preserve him. And like you said, I think that would be a great indicator if we don't have to lean on Mark Andrews quite as hard and can use the other players in this lineup. So what a weapon.
Yeah, when one thing you're just making me think of it right now is that if they get some leads in games and are really able to lean on teams the way I think they might be able to defensively, I think we're going to see Andrews as an early exit from some of these games. He's a very important player. It's not critical to have him on the field when you're up 3 touchdowns, obviously in the early in the fourth quarter. That's a great time to figure out what else you have in your other tight ends in terms of pass catching, which we do not know right now and would love to.
Very true. There are a number of guys on this team, a lot on the defensive side, I think, as well. You're talking about Marcus Peters, even Marlon Humphrey, who look wore out from all the stress we put on him. Calais Campbell. It's always good to be able to get your guys rest late in games. So yes, it would be awesome to build a lead, to want to pound the ball, use Boyle, Ricard, some other tight ends, some other heavy packages, a 6th offensive lineman, and salt games away that way. But yes, having Mark Andrews at the top of the pecking order makes for a good group in itself. But this group has depth. Now, I wanted to add Pat Ricard into this mix because he's used mostly as a tight end. I didn't want to throw him in the running back show, Ken. So Pat Ricard missed some time towards the end of last year, Ken. He's made the last 3 Pro Bowls. Of course, there's not a lot of competition out there for him in the fullback range these days. But something that stuck out to me, last year he was playing some games 70-some% of the snaps, 60-some% of the snaps, pseudo left tackle. So I had to go back, Ken. So in 2019, he played 31% of the defensive snaps, or excuse me, offensive snaps plus some defense. 2020, which I think is a little bit better of an indicator, he was at 41% of the snaps. So my initial guess how I'm going to throw it to you is I expect Pat Ricard to be on the field maybe between 30 and 40% of the time in his role, more of the role we saw in 2019 and 2020 as that move blocker and not playing a pseudo tackle to help fill in the way of any other tackles. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think he was used a lot as an inline tight end, and frankly, Nick Boyle's injury was creating additional playing time that probably is unwanted for him. So I think the Ravens will be able to go back to Boyle more this year. Boyle seems like a new man in terms of his health, and looks like he's ready to play. And I'm excited to see that. Of course, again, have him on the field, and they'll be able to use Ricard more in a traditional fullback role. Also, that motion tight end where we got so used to in 19 and 20, where he comes in, crosses right at the snap, either right before or right after, and then makes a double team somewhere in the middle of that line. I think we'll see some of that still, but I think we'll see him a lot lined up in more of a traditional 21 personnel look out of the backfield, where he's a fullback or an offset eye or regular eye.
So true fullback, just for those out there that might not know, just instead of having Pat Ricard lined up at tight end, and I agree with you, Ken, just expect him to either not so much an I formation, but you said offset eye, moving in motion. And just Pat Ricard, what I love about him, Ken, is he can block at both levels. And sometimes he can even get to some DBs. For a guy who is listed at 300 pounds, I'm not sure he plays that at that weight anymore.
He's not that heavy anymore. He's still listed. One of the things I really noted in camp last year was him walking next to Bradley Bozeman at one time. And then you realize, wait a minute, he looks thinner than Nick Boyle. And Bozeman is exactly the same height. He's got to outweigh him by at least 50 pounds. I mean, just big belly. I mean, Bozeman naturally is trying to put on weight and keep it on and keep the same athleticism at center. 275 is probably his approximate weight. He might weigh less than that, but he's no 300 anymore.
No, I don't think so either. Although he would probably tell you muscle weighs more than fat, Ken. I'm keeping that 300 because I'm all muscle. But Pat Ricard, just I thought was just an outstanding performance last year, being asked to do so much. I mean, he's not so far removed from being a defensive guy. And then his role has constantly expanded. You mentioned when Boyle went down, we asked more of him. And then when the tackle play kind of fell off a cliff last year, it put more of that stress on Pat Ricard. And I think he came through really well for this team.
Yeah, I think he, as well as could be hoped, it's kind of like playing Marlon Humphrey at slot corner. You're not maximizing his value, in my opinion. I think having Ricard off the field a few more plays would actually make him a fresher, better weapon as a fullback that I think would be additionally useful. I think using him as a receiver is kind of a waste of time. And I know I just had a good friend of Patrick Ricard's on the show to talk about him in this expectation series, and he really loved him as a receiver. And I like him as a very much a change of pace guy, 5 times a year, maybe. But right. I really, 4.2 yards per target career for Patrick Ricard is limited as a receiver, and it's not exactly what you want.
So what do you think about Ricard as a third down back? Now, this is a out there question. It's not it's not in the plans for anybody. It's not on the front of anybody's mind. But say the Ravens are having problems with pass protection. Gus and J.K. aren't back. They do have Mike Davis, but Beatty is not known for his pass protection. To kind of spread the field and have Pat Ricard as that third down back, not for an outlet, not for a screen pass, but just for some extra beef for Lamar. Could you see him handling that in a number of snaps if something goes awry during the game?
Okay, so if it's a passing snap specifically, because you're not asking running. He's got 3 career carries in short yardage, and that you could do that kind of thing.
He fumbled once, I think, too.
Yeah, he did. And he's also a guy who you want on the field for all kinds of QB power situations. The Ravens have probably now about 13 guys they could put on the field for 10 spots plus Lamar Jackson, kind of thing that would meet the beef need. But Ricard is certainly one of the guys you'd want on the field for that. But I'll go back to your question, which was should he be a pass blocker? I think the answer is still probably no. I think you need a dual threat running back who can both give you a little bit as a blocker and also go out for a pass. And that's what I'm really hoping for Beatty this year, is a guy who can do enough pass blocking that he is useful as a receiver on those high leverage downs. He's, Lamar doesn't really use an outlet receiver, never really has, the way that Joe Flacco did. Joe Flacco had check Rice as
right.
his set of reads. And I think that, Lamar does not want somebody that close to the pocket to throw the football to. So he needs a receiver that's actually threatening space horizontally to the outside of the field. And, Beatty could be that guy very easily. And that still makes it possible for Lamar to take off as his own check down, a lot. And I think that's really what he and the Ravens offense looks to do, is clear out space for him so he can make trouble on third and medium.
See, that's where my question was going, because Lamar is his own outlet a lot of times. So you want to run a 4 vert, say, or 4 deep routes and have Ricard in there just as a bodyguard and just, not as check down. Check down would be Lamar running. But, trying to bring up some different angles here on Andrews and Ricard, because as Ravens fans now, we kind of know what to expect from these guys. So let's get into more of the unknown.
Okay.
Ken, Nick Boyle. Go ahead.
Take
you have another
second. If you do hold in Ricard as a pass blocker, one of the things, each team has 11. Okay, so we learn under very difficult circumstances from the Miami game. You can't just add one extra guy to the end of a line of scrimmage to block cover 0. They will always outnumber you by 1, and so,
right.
You can't really do it. So if Ricard is in there as a bodyguard and the other team decides to spy Lamar, well, it's going to be a spy for Lamar plus one other man is going to be in to cover Ricard and account for him. And it doesn't allow, I don't think it gives you anything additionally in terms of running the football with Lamar. I think you're better off clearing out the space and letting him go to work.
Me too. And I think that's what we'll see. But yeah, like I said, I was trying to bring up a different angle for Ricard just to give us something to talk about, because I think as Ravens fans, we know what to expect from Mark Andrews. We know what to expect from Pat Ricard. It's really nice to have those two in the building. And especially, if with Nick Boyle coming back, the Ravens can do what they want on offense. But Nick Boyle, of course, can, the main question is what kind of shape he's in after missing basically a year and a half. He came back last year, but he was clearly not the same player. Kind of glad to see him admit that, you know what I mean? Just to say, hey, look, man, that wasn't me. I feel a lot better than I did last year. Sometimes pride, it makes it hard to admit that. But watching him limp out there, Ken, was just tough to see. Just from a personal standpoint, Ken, my favorite player to watch on offense when I go and study tape, because the way Nick Boyle plays, the reckless abandon, the solid fundamentals. He's got good hands. His catch percentage is over 73% in his career, which, it's pretty good for a tight end when you consider he's not getting separation. He's making a lot of contested catches, and he's doing it in a ton of trash. He's not a quick guy, slot guy that you can count on for 75% of his targets, but still 73.3 catch rate. But the big question, of course, with Boyle is his health. And if he's back, Ken, it's going to be a big asset for a Greg Roman run offense.
Yeah, so last year, he only had 1 reception on 2 targets for 2 yards, so 1.0 yards per target. Career, Nick Boyle's only at 6.4 yards per target. But if you look back to 2019, which was his best season, he was a guy who released late a lot, so on extended plays, he was very useful, and a lot of those were very short touchdown passes. So inside the 5-yard line, him getting a pass. I still remember a couple, one in Buffalo where he kind of bobbled the ball and he caught it for the touchdown. And there was another one also where he took a short pass for a touchdown and actually ran it in, I believe. So, he does pick up some short passes like that. And then he's a very valuable 6th blocker at the line of scrimmage, and a guy that is difficult to account for, because whoever's there, as soon as Lamar leaves that pocket, well, first of all, Boyle is releasing, and the guy who had responsibility for Boyle, maybe considering him a lineman at this point, which he is more than that. And
that's right.
And we've seen him get out in space. But yeah, I think he'll be back to taking snaps that were forced upon Ricard last year, as that inline tight end, and a guy who can certainly run around, can run play action effectively, but also, and hopefully that's the case, after the injury, and we see just what he's got left. But also is a guy that can create good double teams in the middle. And I think one of the big things I'm looking for from Nick Boyle this year is to be an asset on double teams, particularly with Tyler Linderbaum. That he is one of the people who's got to help tee up Linderbaum. And when I say that, I mean it could go either of two ways. He's either got to leave Linderbaum with a off-balance man that he can easily handle, or he's got to take that block from Linderbaum when Linderbaum gets him a little bit off balance, and then allow him to move to level 2 and make good blocks. But as they do that, Linderbaum is the one guy that I'm a little bit concerned about in terms of the Ravens, the middle of the offensive line, who is going to be a little bit challenged in run blocking. The issue won't be like his quickness. That's not it. It's the length of other players and how they use it against him to dictate first contact and get him off balance and disrupt his feet, get his body not over his feet anymore. So that's my concern there. And I think Boyle will be a great asset to that. And that's why I don't think a lot of does Linderbaum fit into a gap or a zone scheme thing is all that relevant when he's on a team like the Ravens. Because they can scheme very effectively for the run game. And whatever you think of Greg Roman, he certainly knows how to set up double teams on a run.
Yes, and I expect Greg Roman to use Linderbaum's strengths in this offense, to use him differently, to ask him to do different things than he did of Bradley Bozeman. I mean, the running game is his strength, is what he's known for. And I think Linderbaum will be very good, I think, actually, in the run game with what Roman asked him to do. But yes, there's combo blocks, the timing, the feet, Linderbaum has all that. And he's going to have at least one good guard next to him, who's used to working with different players, and Kevin Zeitler to help with that. But yeah, Boyle, you can see him blocking in the middle of the line. You can see him blocking at the end of the line. You can see him in motion. Just a useful chess piece. Now, Ken, do you think we'll see much, if at all, of Nick Boyle in the preseason? Because obviously, Harbaugh's going to protect his players more this year. He's made that clear. At the same time, I don't think we'll get any indication of how healthy Nick Boyle is going to be, because I don't see him being used in these preseason games. So it's going to create a little anxiety over here, a little bit of a question mark, just to see how close to 100% Nick Boyle is.
Yeah, I think after what happened last year, that may extend beyond the preseason games and into camp in terms of what they ask some of these players to do. It may mean more vet days off for a player like Boyle. He doesn't have much to learn in terms of either Greg Roman's offense or the game of football in general. I'm sure he's got most of his responsibilities down in terms of what they are. The ones that he maybe doesn't have down aren't the ones that even require him to be in a lot of 11-on-11, and certainly not in preseason games. I'd even question, I think they probably want to get everybody in, but some of those hard contact practices they do, and I don't know if they've scheduled one of those yet, but they will. There'll be one other team they play that they'll want a 2 days of heavy contact practice before that. It's a question of whether or not he'd be in for something like that as well.
Yeah, so word is that when we go to Arizona for the preseason, we're staying there an extended time. Harbaugh didn't give away his plans. He didn't say, he didn't say anything like, are we going to do a joint practice? He said, no, you know what I mean? But there could be something like that in the works. He kind of mentioned that he hadn't talked to Cliff Kingsbury. He actually called him Kyle Shanahan, got his names mixed up there. But yes, so maybe in Arizona, maybe he does get a little bit of action, just to try to go against a different color jersey. But, as a Ravens fan, as a Nick Boyle fan, and Ken, really, when Nick Boyle went down in 2020, it was almost as bad of a blow as it was losing Ronnie Stanley, because the Ravens just flat out couldn't do what they wanted to do on offense without Nick Boyle.
It hurt a lot. I really wouldn't compare anything to Stanley, but it hurt tremendously to lose Boyle. It's just one of those. He is one of the central players, and I'm sure I never saw what Roman's reaction to it was as he found out about it, or saw the thing happen on the field. But it couldn't have been good. I mean, he knows how central he is to the offense.
And that injury was absolutely brutal. So credit Nick Boyle for coming back, for even trying to come back last year. But I don't like to, when I'm doing the film, I don't like to publish injuries. But for that one, it was such a dirty shot. It was something that I wanted people to see. Just the angle. I mean, it was a Vontaze Burfict type hit where the guy had 2.5, 3 steps, and just decided to put some hot sauce on the side of Nick Boyle's knee. And it wasn't just one tear. I believe he had multiple tears, multiple surgeries. So credit to Nick Boyle for trying to come back last year. He obviously wants to play football, and to see him here in 2022 with the team can only help. And I know fans get frustrated. They want to see more receivers. They want to see fewer tight ends on the field. But when Nick Boyle is humming, when this offense is humming, Nick Boyle is a big part of that. And maybe, Ken, he doesn't play quite as much as he did pre-injury. We have Patrick Ricard, as we just mentioned, who picked up some of that slack. He's got some experience there and did well. When you're talking about resting players, getting them out of the game. So maybe early in the season, Ken, Nick Boyle's playing time is more sporadic. And then towards the end of the season, he could pick his play up. That's kind of how I'm thinking Nick Boyle's season would go if he's healthy.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's reasonable. And if you do preserve him at fullback even early in the year, use him mostly as a fullback, meaning and he's in there for less snaps, then you probably have more optionality in terms of how you have to use him on an emergency basis if that comes up again. And we can't stick a likelihood of 0 on that, unfortunately, with Nick Boyle.
So, Ken, before we get into the rookies, I know you pay attention to, the numbers on the roster, the active on game day. So I just wanted to ask you, this is something I'm curious about. We're talking about 5 guys this evening, all play basically the same position, different roles within those positions, of course. How are the Ravens going to handle that coming into a game day? Or do you believe all 5 will be active on game day? Or is it going to be some kind of call? Maybe we rest Boyle this week. Maybe one of the rookies gets a week off. Could you just speak to the general roster space and the possibilities here at this position?
Yeah, I mean, I think all 4 will make the team. I'd be very surprised if it didn't turn out to be exactly that way. I think Ricard also as the 5th certainly makes it. The Ravens really, the only place that they might have a spot early in the year is if maybe one of the 2 running backs doesn't come back and they pick up another there, but they're fairly set with who's going to be active, I think. It could be a 4-3 situation on a weekly basis at tight end, as you're alluding to. So
yes.
if you have a lot of 3 tight end sets that you like to run, and Roman loves them, and the Ravens have done very well in 13 personnel over the years that he's been here, then I think you want 4 tight ends that you can fit into that arrangement. Another way to look at this is, are Likely and Kolar, one or the other, or Andrews for that matter, such a guy that we should be thinking of him as a pure receiver. We never want him in the backfield. And Andrews is certainly capable of doing that. He's really improved his blocking over the course of his career. So he might be a guy that they want to keep in line. They want to use more in blocking looks. I think if I had to guess, I'd say Andrews is going to be more of a designated receiver this year, the way that he was in 2019. Andrews' catch rate and catches per snap played on offense, much higher. I mean, it's one of the factors that drove Hayden Hurst out of town, is he wasn't getting a lot of those same opportunities to catch the football on the plays he was in. And Andrews was really a designated receiver. And I think we could see more of that this year. And if I'm thinking about how these guys are used, it's attractive to me to have 4 active on game day, even if I'm playing 3, or it's certainly attractive to have 3 and play them rotationally, so all of them get a fair number of snaps, to keep fresh legs and big bodies come into the game. And that's going to be disheartening to a safety that has to cover that. If it's a cornerback, it's even that much more disheartening in terms of relative size and how fresh they are in terms of what they're going, how difficult they are to take down after the catch. A lot of nice positive things can happen with that, but almost think about rotating your big men at basketball is kind of the analogy I'd use.
I like it. And especially with Boyle coming back, and you mentioned Ricard's limited as a receiver, it helps to have these more two-way tight ends. Now, I think that the rookies that we're about to talk about will have some work to do in the area of blocking, but when they come on the field, if they're trusted blockers as well as dangerous targets, that's really going to help this team. If Ricard comes in, you really don't have to worry about covering him down the field. Charlie Kolar, Isaiah Likely, different story. If they're in the backfield or if they're in motion, they can really stretch the seam and create problems for a safety or a linebacker or whoever is assigned to them. However, the defense wants to play at a lot of zone. So I just wanted to get a feel, like, are we going to have room for all four of these guys on game day if we choose to?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it may come down to the matchup. It may come down to how much do they feel, say, a fourth tight end can help them over that extra wide receiver they could carry. Do they think it can go one receiver short? Maybe do they even think they can go one running back short and go Ricard and two backs in some game? I mean, that may be an option, particularly early in the year if some combination of Edwards or Dobbins is not really ready to go or not ramped up in terms of where they are. So they have some choices they can make there that would end up with additional guy. One thing you can't cut an offensive lineman with the current rules to get an extra tight end. So there's not really an option there. I guess you could cut a defender in theory, but they really don't ever do that. So they keep the sides pretty balanced from game to game. So they'll have to make a choice to go with four, and it'll be one of the things that I'll be talking about. I'll tell you when I look at the inactives each week is, hey, the Ravens have all four tight ends active, and they have a wide receiver down this week. Some of that's going to be about how they use Likely and Kolar and whether they really treat them as receivers or the game plan for them to be receivers in a particular week.
I agree. I'm sitting here thinking through it, and especially if you have Gus and JK coming back off of major injuries, you maybe not want to short the running back room. You may want to have options at running back. So obviously you don't touch the tight ends. So it'll be a receiver choice / tight end choice between the two. So we have two rookies, two new guys. Now, Ken, Charlie Kolar was drafted first before Likely, and I thought that it was interesting to bring that up because I remember an excerpt from the draft coverage where Eric DeCosta looked at Roman and said, "Can you use Likely? Can we use him?" And G-Rose said yes, and we drafted Likely. So the reason I'm bringing that up is that Charlie Kolar seemed like option one, a firm option one, and Likely was just the best player available on the board. So now the Ravens have an excess of tight ends. I mean, Josh Oliver's still in camp, but we're not even talking about him tonight just because of the sheer talent that the Ravens have in the room ahead of them. Which tight end sticking out to you, and who would you like to talk about first?
It's interesting. Let's talk about Kolar first, because the whole offense at Iowa State basically ran through him. So he was to Iowa State what Mark Andrews was to the Baltimore Ravens this last year in terms of they looked for him everywhere, on the field as the primary receiver. It's interesting because I think he might be a good enough blocker that you can use him certainly in line as the blocker, pops in the backfield and some 13 personnel looks with that diamond formation the Ravens used to run a lot in 2019. I think that could come back. You could use him as a move guy, I believe, but that does take away some of the positive things he could do for you. Your move guy, you really want to be sure he's going to help you as a blocker at the point of attack, or at least to threaten a particular point of attack. If you use him that way. With Kolar, I think you are better off keeping him face down the field and using him in play action. But in terms of who's going to get on the field more and how they're useful, it wouldn't shock me if they changed Kolar into having a fair percentage of snaps as a move guy.
Okay. See, that's something I don't see. I got to be honest with you. That's something I don't see. I see Likely as that guy. The reasoning is I believe that Kolar, if he's going to be a plus blocker, it should be in line first. I believe that, the only thing working against him in line, Ken, is the fact that he's 6'6.5", and leverage may be an issue for him. And of course, just gaining strength on the NFL level, different type of athlete he's going to be blocking. But, when I see him, I see a more linear athlete, whereas Likely is more like a running back. He's got some kind of shake to him a little bit. So, I want Charlie Kolar in line or flexed out like a Mark Andrews and really stretching the seam. He's a guy I think that could be used in the red zone, just a side note there. But as far as move blockers, I'm looking at Boyle on the team, Ricard on the team, and like I said, even Likely I think would be better in that role. So, I might split with you a little bit there. I think that's a role he could grow into. But for 2022, I would like to see Kolar either lined up in line or split out to the side. Now, Ken, did you want to respond to that before I went to the next point?
I really don't disagree with that at all. And I think that is the natural way that you would expect him to be used based on what happened in college and who he is that he's a guy who looks downfield. It's just, I have this feeling that we're going to see him used as a move guy as well. And it should just be a different look. One role I could really see for him in terms of not being a traditional inline or flex tight end is lined up in the backfield. We saw that a lot from Hayden Hurst as in 2019. That was not his rookie year, his second year.
Yes.
I think we saw it in 2018 too. We probably did. But either way, I mean, we saw a fair amount of Hayden Hurst lined up in the backfield, particularly in 13 personnel looks. And you have to ask yourself, where does your third tight end go in those looks a lot? You could call Ricard your third back in 13, possibly there, and it's really 22. Or you can have three true tight ends on the field, and Andrews probably is split wide, or somebody is split wide. Somebody's on the end of the line. That's probably Boyle. And then somebody's in the backfield. And maybe that's Boyle, maybe it's Kolar, maybe it's even Likely. We would see.
Yes, I could see Kolar lining up in the backfield and just heading straight ahead and making some of those blocks, because I do see a linear type athlete, as I alluded to before. Going straight ahead, I think Charlie Kolar is very good. It's just the in motion stopping and finding someone in space. That's what I'm a little bit unsure of. But Ken, 6'6.5" and 34.5-inch arms.
Yeah.
You want to talk about catch radius for this guy. And also his body control was something that I noticed in college, is that he's tall, but he can get his feet down. He can contort his body. A lot of flexibility there. Obviously, a very smart guy they bring up, him picking up things really quickly. So I could see him emerging as a sneaky red zone target, third down target maybe.
He'll be good on the sideline, so we definitely it's observed that at Iowa State. I think that one of the things that excites me more about him as a blocker is maybe something other people are not necessarily into, but he's the best chance that the Ravens have to become the new Miles Boykin, as a guy who really can block effectively in level 2 and level 3. Great length for it. Has good feet that you want, great size for it. So he's a bigger guy. He's not quite as fast as Boykin was, but he's a bigger guy. And he definitely could take care of some safeties and some corners. And when I say that, I mean maintain his feet, maintain a block for 5, 6, 7 seconds. It wouldn't take that long, but plenty of time positionally for the running back or the receiver to negotiate the area completely.
Ken, that's a great idea. I hadn't thought of that. But yes, I could see that, because they're similarly built. I mean, Boykin, it's hard to expect anybody to block at that level. What a blocker Boykin was. But also, the Willie Snead type blocks, if I could paint a picture for those at home, where he's kind of on the wing, say behind the tackle and off to the side a little bit, lined up kind of like a receiver, but he would crack down on those linebackers, just come up, seal those linebackers, get his arms on them. And Willie Snead, of course, was a very tenacious blocker, but Charlie Kolar, with his length, his size, heading straight ahead, I could see him, them kind of motioning him closer to the line of scrimmage and having him just block at the second level from the start, not even a combo block. Just go up and get this guy, act like you're a receiver and go up and get this guy. So, you're doing an expectation series, a good year, a great year. I would like to hear, take a little from your show here, if you have any ideas of what you think would be a good year for Kolar and a great year, if you don't mind.
I happen to have it up right in front of me, so I'll read it if you like.
Okay.
A good year is plays regularly on non-obvious passing downs and establishes both a solid target share and value as a blocker. It's very, very generic. I try to not get into, I want to see 28 targets and I want to see this and that. It's just, with the Ravens offense, there are so few targets to go around. There's so few footballs to go around after Lamar takes, his share of runs and frankly, Andrews takes his share of passes. There's just not that much left. And you have to really be careful about, wanting specific number of targets. So that's my good year. Do you want to hear the great year?
Sure. Yes. Go ahead. This is one of the things, by the way, guys at home, listen to Ken's series because he's doing this for every player. Good year, great year. So I love this part of the show. What would be a great year for Charlie Kolar?
All right, I'm just going to read it to you verbatim, and I haven't read it in a while, so I wonder if my opinion has changed here at all. But plays a variety of roles, learns in layers. That's important that as he goes through the season, he picks up additional roles. We saw Adafe Owe do very well with that last year, I'd say. It's a good method to teach a guy. Now, Kolar's more advanced as a football player. He's been doing it for longer than a player like that. But on the other hand, Roman's offense is very complicated, and having him learn his responsibilities one at a time, layer at a time, would be good in my mind. That lead to a 50 to 70% snap share, a decent target share, didn't define that, and has at least one wow factor in his game, whether he's blocking much better than expected, great hands, the ability to consistently exploit a type of coverage, or obvious connection with Jackson. Any one of those four puts it in the great category as far as I'm concerned.
The obvious connection with Jackson would just be something else.
That would kick. Yep.
That would kick. Yeah. I mean, because there's just something to be said about a natural connection. Lamar is deadly over the field. Kolar, I thought, did a really good job with his angles, with presenting himself as a target. And then just his size, he's just a trustworthy target. He's quarterback. He's a guy that I think is quarterback friendly. And that kind of stuff doesn't change as much. When I go through my projections, Ken, and try to look at skills that stick and skills that don't, if you're a quarterback friendly guy and you make yourself available and you make a subtle change, a subtle move, broken plays, you're making eyes with the quarterbacks, or you give what I call an indicator, which was my main issue with Boykin, was he didn't really give the quarterback an indicator as far as throw the ball here. This is where I'll be in 2 seconds, 3 seconds. Kolar does that, man. Like, yeah, he's just quarterback friendly. I think is a trait, a specific trait that translates every time. So, speed of the game. Yeah, I love the instant connection with Lamar. And when we're talking about learning in layers or adding layers to his game, I guess you're talking about, okay, maybe at first he's trusted in line and can flex out, and then build from there as far as maybe being in the backfield or a move tight end. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's exactly fair. How they use him in certain play action concepts, how he's the first read on some targets where you're trying to peel off the top of the defense and he's still getting somewhere in the seam in the middle of the field, making himself available. Those kind of things are both great. I wanted to go back and say one more thing about making himself quarterback friendly and being connected with Lamar on extended plays. Very important. He has to learn how to break the rules he's learned his whole life, which basically play playground football with Lamar if you're one of the chosen ones. And Andrews certainly has the hive mind, as I call it, with Lamar, that they're always on the same page, and he can just take off deep. He can go back to the middle of the field. He can go wherever just to find space. He's very good at it. Kolar needs to have that as well, and he needs to go against the grain to do it. They tell quarterbacks never throw back over the middle of the field. Kolar's got to make it possible for Lamar to throw back over the middle of the field, because that's his natural thing, is to still want to use more of the space on the football field than other quarterbacks can after 3 seconds rolls off the clock from the snap.
That's a great point. And because, I don't work with professionals, but I've coached kids and even older kids, and they want to do the right thing, especially, Kolar's a rookie. They want to do the right thing. They want to be in their area. They don't want to mess up. But to say, hey, man, when plays break down, you just play football. That's a great point. And I'm wondering, you brought this to my mind. I wonder if they give Kolar some of the option routes that they give Andrews. Now, as us studying film, it's hard to tell what's you could even say impossible to tell what's an option route and what's not. Like, did Roman call the correct route to go into open space, or did the receiver have two options and wherever the defender wasn't, he went? But that would be a good way to incorporate Kolar too. And what you have, the consequence of that, of course, is you'll have receivers in the same area sometimes because somebody's running their designed route and another receiver like Andrews will choose to go in that area because it's open. But the benefits of having a big target-friendly, player like Kolar, like Andrews, on those option routes to be on the same page with Lamar, it would be nice to see him incorporate that as part of the game. And one last thing, Ken. You can respond to that too. But if Mark Andrews were to miss a game or two, I expect Kolar's role to skyrocket through the roof, because when I look at the tight ends that we have, Kolar is the most similar to Andrews. I don't think he'll be as good of an inline blocker as Andrews is right now, but it's just a sheer receiver.
Absolutely. I mean, no question about it. We may find out a little bit more about who likely is as a receiver, and I'd love to be surprised on the upside, but I frankly don't think we're going to see enough of him in game action this year to really determine exactly who he is. I think we'll still be looking in 2023 to see who Isaiah Likely is.
Okay, well that sounds like a good transition to me. So, I kind of agree with you on this, because I think that actually, if I'm looking at the Ravens and the way they're built, a lot of how I would use Isaiah Likely is similar to Ricard. Like, I've compared Likely to like a Chris Cooley. That's how I could see his career developing, that kind of H-back tight end, where, because he's built like a running back, Ken. I have to be honest, I wasn't as high on him as others when I saw in the draft, because I don't think he plays long. He doesn't play long like Kolar does. I mean, the arm length is one thing, but as far as like the body flexibility, he's built like Derrick Henry. He's 6'4", 240 some. So just a big, kind of a little bit of a squatty athlete. He has that explosiveness. I want to say something in his favor just before I kick it to you. The big plays, 550-yard plus touchdowns in his college career, a seam stretcher. And I don't think his 40-yard dash time is indicative of how fast he plays on the field. I think he does have some burst and some wiggle to his game. So go ahead and start us off on Isaiah Likely, Ken.
Yeah, I first of all, I agree with virtually everything you just said there. In particular, that he's much faster than his 40 time. He certainly plays faster than that on tape. Something was wrong, and I think the Ravens must know it. The Ravens must know that 40 time is not reflective. I don't think they'd really take a chance on a guy like that if they thought, yeah, that's his real speed, even if he was, even if he put on weight to try and show us he could run, it still wouldn't be acceptable.
No,
they'd say no to that. He played in the Sun Belt. It's not the bottom end. It's not the top end. And we got to be clear about both of these. It's certainly not the SEC, but there are good teams in there. There are SMU and Houston and those kind of teams are there, and they're quality. But they're a Group of 5 conference. I think that the way he was used at Coastal Carolina was very much as a move guy who was the Swiss Army knife for their offense. A kind of a different way that the offense really was largely predicated on his play than with Kolar. But in each case, both of them were the central player on their offenses.
Yes, Delaney Walker is another one for maybe people who don't remember Cooley. Just the Swiss Army knife is what brought that to mind. Just a guy that can do a little bit of everything. I expect him to be good on special teams as well, just because of his size. I could see him taking, like if it's a roster crunch and we're going to need him one, we're going to activate all 4 tight ends, and use him on special teams. I could see him closer to the kicker, playing the big guy role on special teams. But getting into how he's used now, my question I want to focus in first is as an inline blocker. That's where I have my questions about him.
Yeah.
Like we said, 6'4", short arm, 240. I don't see him as a Nick Boyle, as a Mark Andrews type inline blocker who can really maul with the defensive ends. Now, maybe his quick feet allows him to execute some combo blocks. But at first, Ken, I see him as more of a move tight end and not an inline blocker. What are your thoughts about the rookie Isaiah Likely as an inline blocker, and maybe how he could grow into that role?
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, they're going to obviously use him a lot of different ways to try and find out what he's good at. And that's why I say I don't even think, even with some play time in 22, that it'll be apparent to us, at least as fans, who he is yet. That he may be a player that it takes 2 years of layered play, 2 years of increasing his snaps by having some quality time in there. A lot of players, they get the first opportunity due to somebody else's injury. It's just the nature of the NFL. That could be the case with Isaiah Likely, and he might get a trial by fire. Sometimes those work out, and sometimes they don't. In the case of Jalen Ferguson, it really never led to anything. He got a big trial by fire as a rookie, played over 40% of the snaps. In fact, I think it was more than that. I had to look at it. But anyway, he was got his trial by fire, and that didn't really lead to more play. He's had good preseasons since, a terrific one last year, and all of a sudden he's playing 20-some% of the snaps. So with Likely, he's got to make good on some of those opportunities as they come. And I think, given the group that they have, it's very likely at some point he'll get playing time this year for a game or two at least, where injuries create opportunity for him. He may get some regular activations. It's certainly one of the things that I have on my good/great season things.
You want to go ahead and just get into that?
Sure, I could do it. I had some goals for him too, but the good, and the great. The good is get regular game day activations, and that's a full stop right there. If he does that, it's a good season. It may be bad for the Ravens, but it's a good developmental season for him to get these regular game day activations, because if he did, he'll get snaps. He'll get the opportunity to show certain things about being a tight end that he can do well. And I think it's unlikely that he doesn't, get used as a receiver at least within that construct.
By the way, Ken, how hard is it to not use the word likely or unlikely when we're talking about Isaiah Likely? A little humor break here in the middle of the show, but it seems like everybody that I've talked to has to use the word likely. Like, we're going to have to expand our vocabulary here, my friend. We're going to have to figure out some other word.
You're not the only person who's mentioned that to me. Somebody else said it was a big pain in their rear end. Might have been Jordan or Gabe, but
it sounds like Jordan.
Like Jordan. but the truth of the matter is, I don't even notice myself saying it, so I'm not bothered by it.
Okay, good.
And hopefully everybody can understand from context what I mean.
Okay, so yeah, good year. Likely is activated. I'll add to that. I'll say good year. Likely is activated, and we're healthy. Maybe you rest Nick Boyle a week. Maybe his knee's acting up or something like that, or that kind of thing. Or somebody's banged up. Maybe Ricard's banged up, and we're not planning to run the ball as much this week for whatever reason that might be. I'm not sure. I think we're going to run the ball every week, but just to see Isaiah Likely active every week with a healthy group around him. So that to me would be maybe to put that in the very good category. So how about great? How about great, Ken?
For me, great was stay healthy and play a role similar to Hayden Hurst as a rookie. And that would include perhaps 20 to 30 targets, multiple use backfield on the end of the line of scrimmage, and some split. Wide variety of roles there would tell me, he's practicing pretty well. The coaches have got some trust in him. And it still could be a factor of the Ravens are out of options. But if it's the third tight end being on the field, the Ravens do really have options. So they can play, kind of 22 looks that they think of as 13 because Ricard's in there as the third tight end. So they have some options in terms of how to differently structure it. If they had one injured tight end and Likely was kind of forced into being active on game day. So I'm hopeful that, with the target indicator in particular, I think would be one that would be a good indication that the coaches have good trust in him.
I love it. So Ken, another quick aside here. I think, I talked about this with Chris Just Joking on the Tackle Show. We were talking about Daniel Faalele and how I believe because of Juwan James practicing, take it for what it's worth, but the McCary option, the Morgan Moses option, and if Stanley's looking well, it would looking pretty good, like ready to go. I could see Faalele logging some snaps here in the preseason because we don't have to put him in bubble wrap. Let's get the kid some experience. So I'm transitioning that into Isaiah Likely. If let's say Boyle's looking like he's going to play, going to be ready. Do you see us saying, look, let's get Isaiah Likely out there in some live game action and see what he can do against number twos from other teams, number threes against other teams. Let's target him. Let's use him as a move blocker. Heck, let's see how he does in line. Let's throw a lot at him and see what sticks. Could you see that being the scenario this preseason?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we hear from Brian Billick a lot when he's doing the preseason games. He does a wonderful job, by the way. But when he's on, he talks about you're not really looking to beat the other team, and you wouldn't know that from Harbaugh's incredible record in preseason games. But a lot of that's predicated on defensive depth. But on offense specifically, you're not trying to beat the other team to maximize expected points during the preseason. You're actually trying to try out your playbook and see what you have, what concepts work, and maybe more importantly, because you're not really even looking to put all your regular season formations on the field. You're not looking to expose your playbook. You just want to put Likely one-on-one on this guy and see if it works, and see if he can use his body to create space or to create enough space to catch the football anyway, versus a linebacker or a safety, and see if he has got any wiggle when he gets to the top of the route to run some decent routes and give him 5, 6, 7 of those. I remember a couple of years ago, Nico Siragusa was coming off that awful injury, missed all his time. Basically, he hadn't played in his first 2 years, hadn't played since San Diego State, and they got him back on the field finally, and he was given 7 pulls in that game to execute, which is more than you'd even expect. I mean, a preseason game, you might pull a lot, but first of all, you wouldn't play a player for almost the entire game, which he did. But they really just needed to get an evaluation on him, that they didn't really know who he was. So yeah, I think we'll see a lot of Mason. We'll see a lot of Likely, and we'll see a lot of Oliver probably at the end of the preseason. Some of those may be an opportunity to try and see if they can work out a trade of need for need at the end of the roster if depth holds up. Some of it may be a case of, hey, if the Ravens' depth doesn't hold up, maybe they want to sneak one of those players on and see what they have. If somebody gets hurt early, Oliver comes back into play as a guy you might want to have on the end of your roster.
So I like that. I would like to see Likely, if he is used in the preseason, to line him up in the slot and see if he can stretch the seam, see if he can find some space in between the safeties or what have you. And then also as a move back, as a Patrick Ricard with some receiving option, Patrick Ricard, where maybe he's doing a move block, but maybe he's leaking out into the flat Ken. And it's one of those, hey, we got our, Huntley or whoever else the third quarterback is going to be, Anthony Brown out there. Let's see what Likely can do with the ball in his hands a little bit. An exciting player. The last thing I wanted to ask you, touch on, I don't really see this, but I hear it a lot from fans. Let's use Likely as a receiver. So it's a very general term I'm getting thrown at. Could you just comment on that general statement? Let's use Likely as a receiver.
I don't think we're going to see him as an X receiver, say, which would be the I guess it's certainly possible he could be inside or outside on the strong side of the formation. The formation where the tight end is typically tethered to the line of scrimmage. He could be he could be a guy that's on the outside or inside. He certainly could end up being on the outside after motion. So there are ways he could get there. I don't think we're going to see him as an X receiver. I think he just doesn't fit the speed requirement. If he did, it would be a very good sign, by the way, that they'd really found something that a big receiver, because he's other qualities about him I like, with the exception of the speed. We don't know what he's got at the top of the route. I mean, Bateman has both enough speed and tremendous wiggle at the top of the route. It's very difficult to tell what route he's running, and he creates natural separation despite the lack of speed. With Likely, it's not as clear to me that they're going to know right away what they had. And I don't see him being used as an X. Now, that said, he'll be used a lot as a flex tight end. I think that's a natural place for him. But what you're really talking about that is when he's on in 12. The Ravens will play a ton of 12 personnel. That gives the opponent already the indication of how you're using your players. And it's the most common response to that would be some form of nickel, and usually a big nickel if you're going to go with that. You may even go with a standard defense. You may even go with your base defense on some teams and just have a safety cover Likely. That actually would be a usage of Likely that I don't think would be good if they couldn't force the other team to put an extra defensive back on the field. I think you want to force the other team to play the some form of nickel at least. Or you're not really gaining the benefit from having him out there. So that we'll see how that develops in the year. If other teams say he's a receiver and a slow one at that, we'll put our safety on him, and that's a one-on-one matchup we think we can win. That's not good for the Baltimore Ravens.
Very well explained. I see it the same way. Nothing to add. So Ken, wrap us up here on this tight end group. Any general thoughts? How important are they to the team? I could throw a bunch of hypothetical questions to you on this, but if you could just go ahead, wrap us up and bring us home here on this. Looks like a strong, deep group for the Ravens.
Yeah, critical, very versatile. need to stay healthy, and every one of them for different reasons is really important to stay healthy. We know who above all others has to stay healthy, but you know, if the Ravens had to go find someone else instead of Patrick Ricard, that would certainly degrade the offense very similarly. And if something were to happen against Boyle again, it would be a darn shame, because the Ravens are finally back to what the 49ers have a little bit in terms of having 7 large that they can put on the field and not having to play games to do it. No 6th offensive lineman is really required. I agree with you. I think we'll see some of that, but having those 7 large is just really nice in terms of having a terrific power run game.
So Ken, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. Again, check Ken's website, Film Study Baltimore. Follow him on Twitter, Film Study Ravens. Those links will be below. Enjoy the series where he's going over every player. He's doing it a mismatch type of way. He's given his good and great expectations. You can catch me on this show talking about my 2 favorite UDFAs, and Mekhi Polk and Zacoby McLean, the linebacker I like a lot. So, Ken, I always tell you when you come on, thanks for everything you do. And with that, I'll say thank you to our football family. Love my football family. Ken, thank you so much. Say goodbye to the people for me.
My pleasure, Jason. Anytime, my friend.